All right.
Hey,
Can you hear
Sam,
me?
how's it going? Yes, I can hear you, and I can see your fantastic flamingo shirt.
Thank you. This is Sherry wanted me to wear this one because she's like it's darker, it's more professional. So
Yes, flamingos are always much more professional than like parrots. So, yeah, but we won't tell that to Mike.
there we go. So it's
Right.
actually it's a really nice little this is all the various pictures and paintings and whatnot that our girls have done for us or that we've see if I can
Nice.
there we go.
And what's the story with
Anyways,
your gigantic possum back there?
he came from Cracker Barrel and Sherry saw him and liked him. And Kendra relayed that to me, and I went onto the Cracker Barrel site and I got them for her. And we so she liked the possum. I got her the possum.
Do you have an animal of choice, or is that like
My animal of choice would be I would have to say raccoon. Um,
very good?
the trash pandas, there's something about
Yeah, and you're in luck since, people who I've heard don't like raconteur press call us raccoon turd press. So that's like the perfect segue into our interview.
them. Okay.
So I noticed that you're on your post, Sam I Am,
Mhm.
which we will link. You mentioned that you like to take pictures of graffiti, and that's kind of a
Yes.
central theme in your story. What's your fascination with graffiti?
One, it's really cool. There's different types of graffiti, and I found this out not because I'm embedded in graffiti culture, but because I can read and people have written books about graffiti and whatnot. There's tagging, which is basically just putting your name on something, and then there are more elaborate, works of art that are referred to as pieces, and that's when you see the really beautiful, like this is outlined and kind of this flowing script sort of thing, or sometimes actual images, right? That are uh, part of the name that goes up, or or straight up artwork. Walking around Pittsburgh, I saw a lot of graffiti. I like back alleys; they're interesting. You're out front and everything is very sterile. It's very, hey, here's our shop. Here's what we want you to see. You go in the back alleys and there's some really interesting things. Like, where does this door lead? Why is this even here? Why does this door have an octopus tentacle on it? And I'm serious. There's one place down in downtown. I think it used to be a uh uh, sushi place, but the door handle is an octopus tentacle, and it's very interesting. There's a couple of they're not graffiti, but they're some friezes on a building in a back alley down in Pittsburgh that nobody knows what they are. No, there's no record of who they are or what they are, and there's speculation that this it's supposed to be George Washington and one of the Indians that helped him when he was out here surveying or something like that. But nobody knows. Just a little piece of lost history. Um, there's other things that you find like in one alley I came or one street. Coming out of an alley, I came across a plaque that was this was uh, the line where the Great Pittsburgh Fire ended. I had no idea there's a Great Pittsburgh Fire. So you find all these things when you're walking around, but when you hit the back alleys, you see all this graffiti, and it's some of it's gorgeous. Some of it is makes you stop and think, like, why would somebody do that? Why would you pick that name? Others are real. I'm not going to lie, really weird. One of the things that inspired Sigils is a big piece of graffiti under the 30th Street Bridge that I came across, and this was a probably about a 20-foot circle that somebody had sketched out on the underpass of the bridge, and above on the top of it was written in French, and I'm not even going to try the French because I would mangle it, despite having taken a couple of years of French in high school. But it basically said in French, this is not a door." And I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, no, that is. I'm sorry. You're trying. This is like this is not the droid you're looking for. Yes, it is. I know. I can tell. This is a door, and something opened it and wanted to pretend that, like, hey, no, this. I told you this is not a door. I put the words right there. You have to believe me. So that was actually one of the starts of the ideas that led to Sigils was the graffiti in the city.
Because yeah, they seem to tell sort of a story, and it sounds like you sort of wanted to find one out on your own with telling your story.
They absolutely do. And you see all these things and you start putting them together, and the tentacle on the door, and then this is not a door, big circle. What was it? There was another one that I saw um down on the south side, and it was, I mean, up on top of I think it was a three-story building, and somebody must have, the only way I could think of, they must have climbed up to the top and then like hung over the edge to uh, put the tag on up there, but it just said silk, and I'm like, you start these all these things start coming together in your head as you're walking around, and you start imagining stories about where they came from and what happened and why is this here, and before you know it you've got this kind of urban mythology about three rivers and three different worlds meeting in Pittsburgh, and you know three different groups of defenders, and Sigils is the story of one of them.
And so you're a native of Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, grew up in a little suburb, a little town called White Oak. So I went to school here, went to Carnegie Mellon University. Um, that's where I met Sherry, met my wife. She got to know me and didn't run screaming, so that was great. Um, and then went away for a little bit because I was in the Navy. Went out to the West Coast. Came back to Pittsburgh because this is where family is. This is where there were job opportunities here. I wanted to get into software development. It's not a bad place to do software development. You've got University of Pittsburgh. You've got Carnegie Mellon University. A lot of startups. This particularly in the networking and now in the robotics world. So a great place to kind of put down roots and build a home and have a family.
What I really enjoyed right away with Sigils is that you can tell that you not only know Pittsburgh, you're not just like a writer who's living in like Los Angeles or something. He's like, I'll just choose this American city. You can tell you not only know it, but it's very much a love letter to Pittsburgh. Like just how
Oh
much you love
yeah,
the city really comes through. You give the locations and just the feel, and you really do feel like you're getting a tour of it, which
that's
I
awesome.
enjoyed as a
That's
Texan.
exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, because I mean,
Um,
we don't have much water here, and getting to hear about like the bridges and the rivers, it was just I love that.
that actually was a big part of uh, just everything to do with Pittsburgh. My wife got me a couple of years ago a book about the city streets of Pittsburgh, and we're one of the few cities in the country that has city streets. They're actual sorry, cities. Everybody has city streets, city stairs, uh, and these are stairs that are streets. They go from, they will run up a hill and they're actual streets, and you'll have a house that's halfway up this stairway, and that it's got an address that's on the stair because that's a stairway street. Uh, Not a whole lot of them anymore, but they're I learned a term from that book that sticks with me. It's called affordances. It's ways to get from, easily get from one place to another. So a bridge is an affordance. stairs are an affordance, a tunnel is an affordance. We have we have those all over the place here. So I mean, when you start thinking about that, I was reading that book and already had the seeds of sigils in mind, and I'm like, of course, you've already got a place with, you have to cross rivers, you have to cross streams, and you have to cross hills, and you have to go through hills, and you've got all these other things. Of course, there's other little places where it's easier to get from one world to the other. So, of course, that's why Pittsburgh is where it is, right? You've got three rivers coming together. That's already a little bit unusual. You've got, and technically we have four rivers. People don't talk about that. There's a fourth secret underground river that's basically an aquifer that runs under the city. Um, so uh, there's a lot of strange things in Pittsburgh. We lost a B-52 bomber once in the middle of the night. It crashed into the river. Nobody could find it. So yeah, I'm gonna write a story about that at some point. All sorts of strange things historically. And you start thinking about all the stuff in Pittsburgh and all the strange happenings and all the things that have gone on, and you're like, maybe all these weird stories link together in some strange way. And oh my goodness, I'm having so much fun with it. I love it. I just love writing those stories.
And so something that is also curious to me. So I love that there's this whole kind of culture with graffiti. And so can you talk a little bit about tagging? Like, why do the characters have a different sort of nickname for their tag that's not their real name? Why is that?
Um, People do that all the time nowadays, and they don't even think about it. What's your name on the Discord server? What's your name on on Facebook, right? There's a lot of people who go by some other name than what their name is, because they kind of want to project their personality. And I think that's what when you start talking about tags in graffiti, that's what it is. Somebody wants to project a certain amount of
Mm.
personality. Or for my characters, they've got names that reflect uh, who they are. They've got names that kind of tie into their background, and at one point in the story, um, one of the characters, a Marine by the name of Daniel Romero, he mentions that sometimes you don't pick the name, sometimes the name picks you, and so his tag, he goes by Bone, and he works with a kind of a goth girl whose given name is Cynthia, but she goes by Sin, Syn. Sin in a lot of ways is a persona that she puts on. Just kind of like the same way that Bone, when you're a Marine, you kind of put on a persona. James goes by Leo, and that just happens to be a name that he picked that is a reflection of who he is and where he's going. So you've got these characters who uh, take these names for one reason or another, but when it comes to what they're doing in the stories, uh, Bone is very very clear when he's talking to James at one point. He's like, you never use your real name because names have power, and you don't want to use your real name. You don't want that name to give that name out to let somebody have power over you. So you kind of it's kind of like having a nickname that you go by. Um, there's so many stories about not telling the Fae your actual name. Being careful to let them not let them know who you are. That that kind of very easily plays into this. Um, and of course, you're right. If you start thinking about, when I start thinking about the setup in Pittsburgh, this idea that there are these different worlds that kind of impinge on our city, and that you've got forces that sometimes want to enter either maliciously or just you know don't realize how much damage they can do. Um, and you think, okay, well, who would be the group that would be most knowledgeable about the power of names. It's the people who put their names all over the city. And for for Bone and James and Sin, right? What they're doing is, as part of their defense of the city, is they're basically marking it, right? Closing the doors, closing the ways, and saying this is our space. Stay out.
And you use some really interesting terms like widdershins uh,
Yeah,
with these, and I'm wondering what kind of you talked a bit about the Fae. What kind of research did you do to craft this story?
I read a bunch of just general mythology, basically just, hey, here's everything that you could want to know about fairies. Books like 69 Nails, I believe was the name of it. That's really good book. Talking about some of the ancient traditions of quit rents in England, and they're awesome. Look them up. It's very strange about how a certain number of nails and a certain number of iron horseshoes that are given to the king as payment for rent on properties, and nobody remembers why this was originally arranged for, or what the purpose of it is. But they still go on. You start getting into old traditions and old stories and uh, these ideas of, like, there was a time when you didn't consider these beings to be myths. They were things that you lived with, and not in a, like, oh, I'm absolutely terrified, but in a respectful way in a lot of ways. Reading through that sort of things, you can there's no way that you can actually look at any of that and come up with, I think, with a coherent, uh, like, oh, this is the way things were. This is the right way to do fairies, because there's so many variations, there's so many differences. Um, so a big part of it is just reading it to get the idea and to get the flavor, and to then think, just like with the 69 Nails and the King's Remembrancer, people forget things. You don't remember anymore why things work or do the things they do, but you know that they just go on. And I'm trying for some of that in my stories. I try for this flavor of, yeah, things are mystic and strange and weird and not always explained. And sometimes even the people who are responsible for what's going on don't understand what's going on entirely. Um, that gives a very, I think that's a very mythic feel to things, because there are a lot of books, Master of Five Magics, I think, um, or Master of Four Magics, I think was the original series, um, that kind of codify and give the idea of, like, you can understand magic as a science and then learn and experiment with it. Um, I Those aren't bad, but I tend to like the idea that, wow, uh, magic is magic. And there's a reason that it's very strange. It's because it's in a lot of ways beyond our understanding. Either because it is dealing with things that we can't comprehend, or it is dealing with beings that we can't comprehend, or it's dealing with relationships that we just don't quite understand. So I would much rather have that kind of feeling and things. So when I read, that's what I was going for. Ooh, yeah, I have no that's really weird. I'm gonna pick that up and incorporate that. So,
And dreams are also a very central part of your story as well. It's not
oh,
just about the portals or the Fae. Um, how did you tie that in and research that and make that part?
um, that a lot of that was honestly, I did a little bit of research because James wants to understand at one point in the story how dreams work, because he's involved in this, right? Um, his problem is that there are there are dreams, right? Your everyday sort of dreams, and then there are dreams that are imposed from outside, and that's what he finds himself in. He's tangled up with a creature that can uh, draw him into dream space and into a place where reality is fluid. Um, so he does learn how to deal with that in some respects, but it's never a clear cut, oh, well, this is exactly what you need to do. It's all a very much a dream logic sort of thing, right? And we all know what that is. There's a certain dream that I have where I know that if I find myself in my old house, the house that I grew up in, that there's a passageway in the attic that actually does not exist in the house, but there, in my dreams, there is this passageway that leads to the house that we lived in before that. And I've had multiple dreams where I've traversed that passage. And it makes sense in the dream, right? So you've got this kind of fluid reality. And I play around a little bit with those sorts of connections, actually. This dream world gets referred to many times as the realm between. And it hasn't actually specified the realm between one. It's the buffer between Earth and Fairy. So it is the whenever you traverse from one world to the other, that is what you are crossing through this world of dreams. Um, so it's possible to physically be there. It's possible to mentally, spiritually be there. And sometimes those three can get very tangled where you don't actually know what's going on. And that is the easy way for me as an author to say, I can do cool stuff. I can do, I can I can do weird things and I can have strange dream logic and I can have fun with it. And when somebody says, "Well, why did this happen?" Well, because it was cool and because the dreams happen that way sometimes. There's some dreams we have in common, and there are other ones that are unique to people, and finding the middle ground between those and putting people in a kind of in this situation where they can take control and isn't the same as lucid dreaming where you realize you're dreaming and direct your dreams, but giving them the idea that, like, yeah, this is a world that you can play around in and doesn't have to be as scary as it is. It's kind of cool sometimes.
Can we talk a little bit about your characters and how you came up with them and what you like about them?
Oh, okay. So how did I come up with my characters? uh I have no idea. I'm going to be very honest with you. I wanted to write a book for young men. I wanted a book that a guy could read. If you go out and you look at young adult, new adult stuff these days, um, there's 1,001 stories about little Sadie, and she didn't realize that she was the secret princess of the realm, and uh, there's lots and lots and lots of stories these days for there's this idea that oh, boys don't want to read. Um, they do. They do. They're just not reading the same sort of things because they're not getting the sort of stories that honestly the sort of stories that I read when I was growing up. So I wanted to write something that teenage Sam would have been like, oh, this is cool. I like this book. So that's kind of where James came from. I wanted a character that uh, you know teenage me could have identified with. So he's shy, he's a little bit of a loner, he doesn't really have any uh, doesn't really have any friends, which wasn't me in school, but everybody feels like that, right? Um, feels isolated and very awkward around girls. So, you know, I of course give him a situation where, as a young man, he's got some. He discovers that he's not as isolated. He's not. He's got some friends that do care about him, even though. maybe he doesn't like it too much at first, and then he's growing into some abilities and some responsibilities that are important. So he's not just like flopping along in the world. Bone came out of a bit of graffiti that I saw that said, "Who are you anyway?" And I sat down and I wrote a bit where he was confronting a young girl named Meg. I did not really realize where it was going until it got to the end, and he told her that she was like, "I don't want to deal with this," and he's like, I've spent my life keeping the Fae out of the city. Sit down. We are going to deal with this." That was where he came from. I'm like, okay, so he's a protector. He needs to have some skills. And this is kind of cheating. I know where I want the story to go, and I wanted a character who actually had this exact particular set of skills. And I'm like, okay, where'd you get these skills? Uh, Military would be a great place. And I actually had a friend who was an assault man in the Marine Corps before they got rid of that MOS, and talked to him about some of the things. And once I convinced him that I was not interested in actually doing any of the things that I was talking to him about, but I was interested in it for a story. Um, he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can tell you how that might work." Uh, and that's how it became that, came out that Bone was a Marine. Um, and the story of how things end up where they are is you can find that in a book called it's in a story called Gone Fishing, in a book called Street Magic from Camden Park Press. So that's a little bit of that's kind of like the background of Bone and Sin. Sin, she I don't know where she came from. As far as I'm concerned, like finished smoking a cigarette, hip checked the character that I was thinking about into the darkness and strode onto the stage. And she is, I think, in a lot of ways, one of my favorite characters. Um, she's sarcastic, she's foul mouthed, and she's an absolute sweetheart. She really is. It doesn't come through as much in Sigils, um, or at least hasn't yet. But she has a very big heart. She cares a lot about people, and the kind of tough girl exterior, like I said, is a persona for her that allows her to deal with where she's at, in this world. Meg's story is a lot more tangled and complicated than uh, you kind of see it first, and you see this in this story. I don't think I'm giving too much away to say that she's got issues with her memory, and things that seem strange to her or odd would seem normal to other people, and vice versa. So there's something going on with her. Although I will say that one of the things, and this is probably from the women that I've been involved with in my life. Um, Talking about Sherry, females in my family. I grew up in a family of nurses, OR nurses, that sort of thing. As a matter of fact, when I broke my leg, uh, it was my Aunt Jerry who was responsible for taking care of me in the ER. Um, so, it, and my daughter's a nurse now, so I'm familiar with strong women, but not in the Hollywood, boy boss sort of way. Um, Meg and Sin are different, in different ways, are uh, very strong women, but not in the I'm going to punch you in the face, except for Sin because that's who she is. Um, they so their way of looking at the world and dealing with the world is different from the guys. James and Bone and some of the other male characters um, tend to have a much more direct direct solution to things. Um, we see that in I mentioned Gone Fishing earlier, which is story is kind of an origin story for Bone. But he's got some very direct solutions to dealing with big problems. Um, the ladies in the stories, not so much. They and I think that is a reflection of the idea that they are more, all of them, more thinkers. And I'm trying. I'm actually working through this in my own head now that you asked me this. Um, Trying to reflect the idea that at least in from what I've seen with raising my girls in the feminine world, punching things doesn't really solve problems. It doesn't in the masculine. It can in the masculine world, but it doesn't really there either. But sometimes it does. So there's no problem trying it first. Um, but they have problems that are bigger than them that they still have to deal with, and things that are stronger than them that they still have to deal with. And that means that they can't just power their way through it. They have to use their heads. So I think that's probably going to be at least a bit of the arc for James and Bones, some of the male characters, is learning, okay, uh, eh, maybe there's some things that you can't just, punch your way through. And I think possibly for the female characters, learning that, you know what, sometimes what you really need is a good swift kick and to get things moving. So we'll see.
James's mom, for that matter, is
Oh yeah,
she
yeah.
stands out as a very she doesn't seem to let things stop her. Even though she's not an aggressive character either. She's a very gentle, likable, approachable
Yes.
character, but she doesn't really seem to ever be, deflated. She's always talking about how we'll find another way to do something. Or
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. As I was reading, James's interactions with his mom, I just thought, I don't think I've ever read a story where like the teenage guy gets along with his mom. Like that was actually really
Mhm.
refreshing just to see like an actual relationship with
You
parents.
know, when I said I wanted a book that I would have enjoyed as a teenager, I loved my mom. I miss her terribly. She passed away
Mhm.
a couple of years ago, and I wish she could have been here to see Sigils and
Mhm.
see all the stuff that I'm writing now. Um, but I adored my mom. I really loved her. Uh, yeah, she was a tremendous woman, and I've known so many guys that are like that, right? I think people look at writing and they're like, oh yeah, here's the easy thing. We'll give them trauma. We'll give them a dysfunctional family. We'll um all of that is that's out there, right? You can have that. And sometimes that does make for the really good story. But I can imagine a point where James has to explain to his mom what's going on, right? And that's something that's potentially very hard because he loves her and he respects her and he wants to be honest with her, but he also doesn't want to end up in the going down to the psych ward. So it's kind of you've got your own conflicts there from a healthy relationship even. So um, yeah, and like I said, I wanted a book that I would enjoy reading. And I loved my mom, so I wanted a young man who loved his mom.
And not to shift things too suddenly to a very different character, but for lack of a better term, your monster,
Okay.
your villain.
Yes.
Those are the most eloquent passages. I was just blown away by
Oh, wow.
how beautifully you can write just no offense, but how beautifully you write evil. But it is just absolutely no, they are just it's terrifying and it's gorgeous and you're rooting for the characters. You get away and it's fantastic and I'm like wondering like what are you thinking as you're writing, about your villain or your monster?
That's actually really. I have a book coming out with hopefully soon with Canon Publishing, and that's more of a uh, traditional fantasy. But one of the comments I got from Sherry after she read through that was, "You write some really good demons," and I'm not sure how I should take that.
You're
Thank
just a
you,
pastor,
thank
that's
you.
all.
Yes, that's okay.
Well, you
Well, I
understand good
guess
and evil in a whole new
exactly.
level. Yes.
That's the way I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
Is that I've spent some time trying to understand good and evil and think about it, think through it. One of the ways that you develop better arguments is by taking the opposing side and trying to work with that, right? Um, so I've had to do that. I in arguing politics, in arguing about theological issues and philosophical issues. So it's not. Hopefully, it's not that big, big a deal that I can write evil convincingly. But yeah, I just wanted. I wanted a being. I wanted a creature that was evil um, for evil's sake. Not one that was like, oh yeah, you were mistreated. This was so bad. I can see why you're evil. I wanted a creature that was absolutely despicable, that didn't really have any redeeming qualities, and kind of really stuck to the um, there's this idea that some fairies were okay to deal with. Not that they were necessarily good, but if you understood where they were coming from, right, you could deal with them on their terms properly. Um, and this creature is one that his terms are he wants to kill you and devour you, and he would prefer that you at least make it interesting before you know before he got a hold of you. Just to keep just a little bit of entertainment. The idea kind of grew over time, and as I wrote, of a creature that was so wicked that he was cast out of the land of fairy and does not dare show his face outside of the realm between, because otherwise there are far too many beings that would be interested in finding him and giving him payback for his past sins. So um, yeah, there's and I will forecast in the future. Anybody who reads this and thinks, ooh, it's going to be hard for Sam to come up with a redemption arc for this creature. Yes, it is going to be very hard because I do not plan it. He is who he is, and he is a wicked foul creature. So, um, there for me, right, there are when you start talking about good and evil, there's evil in the world, and we're not just talking about people who are misunderstood or people who have different ideas of what's good and bad. We're talking about people who are uh, just people and who are just evil. They embrace it. They love it. They like hurting others, and they enjoy uh, lording their power over others, um, and they do not want to be any other way. So this was kind of a reflection of like the idea that yeah, there's just bad in the world. Sometimes you have to figure out a way to deal with it.
And so what is your writing process? What do you kind of start with a rough outline? Do you do like a majorly detailed kind of first draft, or do you just sit down and just say, I'm gonna let this come to me? How do you do that?
Yes. Uh,
Good.
I'm learn. I am learning how to write. Normally, or at least initially, it was very much pantsing. I would go ahead and uh, sit down, and I'm like, okay, I've got an idea for a story. Let's see where this goes. Uh, as I have grown as a writer and gotten a little more experience, um, I will sit down now with a rough outline, especially for a short story. Um, might be a couple of paragraphs, but I know where I want this story to go. I've got the idea for the conclusion and where the climax is, and you know, the various beats in the story. Um, Sigils was kind of a blend between the two because there's a lot of discovery writing, which is good. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna throw this out there. Even if you are a plotter, even if you're like, okay, this is how the story goes, there's going to be a point where somebody wanders in, right, and you've got your Sin or your Tom Bombadil or your other character or your other idea that kind of wedges itself in there, and you're like, this is just too good to let go. So I can't, I need to adjust things to deal with it. So there was a lot of discovery writing and a lot of plotting with Sigils. The sequel to it that I'm working on now, I'm definitely plotting that because I have an ending and I know exactly what needs to happen and I need to figure out how to get there. So that's going to involve some plotting because I want to make sure that I still have a satisfactory story there. Bluest Sky was a combination of plotting and pantsing. Um, that's the one that I'm working on for canon. Um, there's a couple of other stories. There's a prequel that I would like to do for Sigils called Three Rounds of Hell, and that is set in pre-Civil War Pittsburgh, and kind of sets up some of the situations for some understand helps them give you some understanding of why the city is the way it is, and um, that one has that one was definitely I sat down and I plotted it out, and not only plotted it out, I gave it to my writing group and I got critiques back on it because that's going to be I think is going to be a very different and a harder story to tell than uh, Sigils because Sigils is set in the modern day. It's very easy. You understand how people think. You understand why people do things the way they do. Um, yeah, they say that the past is a foreign country. They do things differently there. When you start reading about yeah, even you know 150 years ago, you realize that that's true, and they're it's a very different period. Um, but that doesn't mean that the people are so different that you can't understand. So I want to be careful with that if and when I get around to it, because I want to tell the story in a way that sounds weird, that does honor to the characters that I have in mind, because I think they're good. I've got some good people and good people in those stories and some flawed characters. And uh, for me, talking about good and evil, right? Um, someone told me a long time ago, and I don't know who the quote is from, that God draws straight with crooked lines. We're his crooked lines, we're his broken beings, and somehow he manages to do good with us. And I think that's a big part of what the story that I want to tell, this prequel story that I want to tell is, and I want to make sure I get that right. So I'm kind of holding off until I until I get a lot better with my writing.
I love that. And, something that's so important is that feedback. And so you're part of the Alpha Mercs as well. Has that shaped you a lot as a writer?
Um, much in the way that you know, a sandblaster would shape a cracker. Yes. Um, they are a fantastic group. I have learned so much from them. One of the things that I've definitely learned is to trust my instincts. Um, there are the number of times where I've handed something off to them for review and thought, I should have done this way, and had them come back and go, you know what, you should have done this way. Okay, I should I should know that. Aside from that, the I do not think that there is a single person that has ever looked and critiqued my work, that I've not learned something wonderful from. My editor for Sigils was particularly insightful and very sweet and very awesome. And anybody who's watching this, she's the one interviewing me, so I have to be now.
I thought you were talking about
Lisa,
Deej.
no, no,
He's so
no,
sweet. No, which he
no.
is. He is brilliant.
I was talking about you.
Thank you.
You did a fantastic job on it, and I learned a lot from your comments. Same thing for for other editors that I've worked with. A couple of editors. Lynn Worthen at Camden Park Press went out of her way, did a really good job helping me with Gone Fishing, which was like the second or third story I'd written at that point. No, I've learned from the Mercs. TC Ross. I've got an entire editing sheet that I use for my self editing passes that are like stuff I've learned from her, stuff I've learned from Mike Burke, Spearman Burke.
Your wife Sherry is just a fantastic editor, and so how do y'all work together with some of your writing? And she's a Merc as well, and
Yeah, um, it, it's kind of interesting. It took a little bit, and I think it was a little bit of effort on my part to toughen up and not be as sensitive, and a little bit, I think a little bit of work on her part to understand, uh, science fiction fantasy genre a little bit better. Oh, who's it? Somebody, Deej, I think actually mentioned it earlier today. The Heinlein prescription for doing background, right, world building, and the door dilated. Just leave it at that. You don't have to explain why. You don't have to explain the mechanism. You don't have to, explain why pressure systems require a dilating door. But no, just say the door dilated, and now people know something strange here. This is different, and they will build the world in their mind as they go. Um, I think that was something that once she clicked on that, things, she started to see, oh, these are these stories are not, it's not that they're failing to explain, that it's that you have to be patient, that that's going to be spun out for you. And that probably sounds like I'm being really rude to my wife and saying that. But like I said, I had to learn to be tougher, to not take things personally, to understand that she's trying to help me, and her questions and her comments are not like, "Hey, you suck as a writer." They are, you know, I didn't get this, and I think that is the probably the biggest thing for me in terms of maturing, right? Um, is that the understanding that as a writer, I'm a communicator. And if I am failing to communicate the ideas that I have in my head, which I do routinely and with you know, great problems, right? But if I'm failing to communicate what I have in my head, then that means that that's my problem. You got a reader or critiquer who doesn't like the way that you did it. Well, okay, tough. It's my vision. I'm going to communicate it the way I want to. You still got it, right? But if you go through the entire story and you don't realize that the aliens are tripods and they've got three legs, and that's the a key part of the story, then that's on me. I need to go back. I need to rewrite things to clarify that. And she is absolutely tremendous at that. She is fantastic and at looking at a story and saying, picking up, early on. uh, I can see that you are trying to do this, and I can see how that effect should affect something further on, but it didn't really occur to me until I went back and reread it. Um, and sometimes that's what you're going for. You don't want people to realize, oh, this was important until later. Other times you want to, you definitely most of the time you want that to just kind of flow for people's eyes to go right when they get to the part where they realize what's going on down this path you've led them. But she does a tremendous job of uh, both going through and helping me with my grammar because my grammar stinks, um, and helping me to understand where it is that my story is weak in terms of communicating action and communicating emotion as well. Like I want to get across the way this guy feels and how that goes into what his next decision is. And she'll come back. She'll be like, I just don't understand why he did this. Okay, I messed something up. I need to throw something else in there. I need to fix it up. I need to make that clear. So I'm very, very, very incredibly blessed to have her because it means I look good because everything that I do, I can like get Mercs to critique it and then I fix it up and then I get her to look at it and I fix it up. And by the time I hand it off to somebody else, I'm like, yes, I've already had a professional editor look at it. So yeah. Hey, yay me. I win. I look good.
Yeah. And so, okay, we've got 7 minutes left.
Okay.
What would you like Sigils like? Okay, your reader has just read the last page. What do you want that book to leave them with? Like that feeling, that emotion, that thought, that atmosphere. What do you want to linger with the reader?
At the end of Sigils, I want them to be happy, right? That uh, James has seemingly dealt with his problems. I want them to be. I shouldn't say seemingly. That gives something. I want them to be happy that James is happy. I want them to be happy that James and Meg seem to be starting to form some bonds in a relationship, and that James has found a group of people that he fits into. Uh, he still has some growing to do, but he is starting to mature. He's starting to worry about others. Um, and I want them to want to know where that goes. And I want them to think, okay, so you can't just leave me here, right? These two are seem to be starting some sort of relationship where they at least admit that they enjoy being around each other, and he's found a group of people that are strange, but he fits in with them, and he's admitted that there's this weird stuff going on that he seems like he's willing to step up and try and help defend other people from. Um, so where does it go? What happens next? What's going on? And did he really win? So that's what I want people to be as they go into the next
And we've got about 5 minutes left. What have I not asked you that you would like to discuss?
of anything. The one thing that I would say is um, and I've kind of hinted at it, right? The religious aspects of the story, or the Christian aspects of the story. And in some of my other stories, they've been very overt. I've kind of uh, Down Among the Dead Men was actually dealing with ghosts in the afterlife, right? Ghosts essentially in purgatory. So, and then some of the other stuff that I've done has been much more very obviously from a Christian. Um, Sigils is as well, and that's kind of not entirely. I try not to be very obvious about it, but we've got individuals with very different faiths um, that that don't really explain how the world is the way it is in this particular case. So they have to deal with that, looking at the Bible and what it says about how the world was created. Where do all these various creatures and other places fit in? Um, and one of the interesting things is that the uh, you know it, going back to mythology, um, one of the very common ways of dealing with the uh, folklore and the mythology of, for example, the British Isles or Europe was the idea that, oh, well, what we're dealing with here are fallen angels. Uh, that there are angels that rebelled. One third of the angels rebelled against God; they were cast into hell. One third of the angels, uh, sided with God, and they are residing in heaven with Him. And then one third of these immortal creatures didn't make a choice, and they were basically, they are left, and they are the elves and the fairies and the pixies and all these mythological creatures that humans now have to deal with. Uh, that idea fascinates me, and it's kind of it's getting woven into sigils. It's not, I mean, it's not going to be a religious text in any way, shape, or form. It's not going to be something that uh, is intended to be like, oh my goodness, this is actually this is some truth or whatever. Um, but the idea of having a refugee from Ferry show up in Pittsburgh because they want to go to church, uh, because of course, they've been reading their Bible, is really that's weird and compelling, and I want to tell stories like that where you're not quite sure not only what's going on, but you find yourself questioning, well, you know, do I really believe what I believe if one of these creatures shows up and says, I want to be baptized. It's things that I had in mind, things that were going on in my head that I do keep track of. But really, isn't going to impinge the story. I don't think, at least not directly. Um, it will. I will say this. It will more in some other stories, but not in this one, in this particular one. So we'll leave it at that.
Sam, thank you so much. Sigils, the full novel, comes out the 30th of October, which is a Thursday, I think. I hope.
Yeah,
And check out all his other amazing stuff. You've got Bluest Sky. Is that out already or is that about to come out?
that's about to come out, and it may not be Blue Sky. We're talking about titles. It may be
Oh,
Road Mage.
all right.
Oh yeah, we'll see. See.
Exciting. Okay, we'll try to have some links to that too. And Sam, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to both get to read your writing and to get to talk with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
All right, have a good night.
You too. Bye bye.